I'm Kirk Hanson, Executive Director of the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University. Our guest today is Craig Nordlund, retired General Counsel of Agilent Technologies, longtime in-house lawyer for Hewlett-Packard Corporation. A panel today discussed what is the role of the General Counsel regarding ethics and compliance, and Craig brought a number of veteran Silicon Valley General Counsels to sit down and talk about that.
Right.
One of the foci of this discussion is the General Counsel responsible for ethics and compliance? And I was surprised that a distinction was made between those, and the lawyers seemed to say, we're willing to be responsible for compliance but not for ethics. Why do they think that way?
Well, it's a difficult role, and it's been evolving really since Enron, when the big question was asked, where are the lawyers? And it was, where are the lawyers, not just in terms of legal compliance, but also the ethical aspects of that. I think it's an important distinction, because the traditional role for the General Counsel and the legal department really is the compliance aspect. You are the lawyers, so your job is interpreting the law and how the company functions within the law. Ethics has come to the game a little bit lately, and in fact you first started seeing the ethics, standards of business conduct ethics coming out after the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act was passed in 1978. And it's evolved over time, because ethics often become law at some point after there's been some disaster. I think the concern about having the ethics responsibility in the General Counsel's office is broader than just should it be with the General Counsel. I think the real question is, should it be in just one place? Because if it becomes in just one place, people no longer feel accountable. If the General Counsel is the one who is supposed to be the guardian of the corporate ethic, then I, as the business manager, maybe I don't need to worry about that because the General Counsel's worrying about it. I'm the CEO. I don't need to worry about that. The General Counsel takes care of those things. And it also causes a blurring between legal compliance and ethical compliance. And I think that's also dangerous.
In your experience, are those two different things? What's different about ethics?
Well, clearly at the top of the pyramid you would say compliance with the law is part of the definition of ethical conduct. And as you work your way up that pyramid, I guess, sure, there are a whole bunch of laws here that codify ethics in various fashions. And that part is clearly the domain of the lawyer to interpret those rules and regulations. But you move further on up, and there are some grayer areas. The law says you can't kill somebody. Okay, well, I can't kill somebody. But what if I make a product that has a potential hazard? And someone is accidentally killed by my product. Have I made it safe enough? What sort of ethical considerations go into developing that product and testing that product so I don't harm people? That's in some cases regulated. If you're in the drug industry, it's regulated, but in a lot of cases that's not regulated. That is the corporate ethic to decide how much testing you want to do to make sure that your product does no harm.
And as you said, in many areas, a number of years before things become subject of compliance, they face the company, and those are faced in the realm of ethics. And the lawyer can't opine about, you've got to do this for the law, but an ethics concern would say, ought we to do that or not, even in the absence.
Even in the absence of a law.
In the absence of law. Well, in a company, if not the General Counsel, who should be responsible for ethics?
Well, I'd like to say, technically, the CEO is responsible, but as a practical matter, the CEO isn't going to develop the training programs. He or she is not going to, enforce the actions. But in any event, the CEO has to be the leader. The term tone at the top is overused these days, but frankly, there is no substitute for it. And when I was General Counsel, one of the things that I coached the CEO on was making sure that they understood the power of their office. And so simple things like going out to the business unit managers and saying, got to make your numbers this quarter, folks. We're
no matter what.
No matter what. And if they really hear no matter what, then they start questioning the ethics at the top. So in my coaching was to make sure that the CEO also said, but you got to make sure that you do it the right way. You cannot cut corners. I will not tolerate. I will fire anybody who doesn't follow the rules and who tries to cut corners and do things in an unethical fashion. And then follow through and use those as training tools. So in some ways it has to be broader than the CEO. It has to be the senior executive team. It has to funnel down. People have to see that action is actually taken against people, that there are negative consequences if they do not follow the company's true ethics. So it has to start at the top, but ownership has to be fairly broad, and you can have the legal department be responsible for the training, or you can have the HR organization responsible for the training, or an ethics office responsible for the training. That is almost less important than the actual buy-in by the CEO and the senior executive team.
Okay, so at one level, everybody on the senior management team has to take responsibility for asking the ethical questions.
Yes.
In some ways, the CEO has to be the chief asker of ethical questions. And on another level, maybe the CEO will want to assign somebody or some combination of people to raise the ethical questions when you face them in one segment of the business or another.
Absolutely.
And that could be the
That could be the general counsel, yes.
Thank you very much, Craig.
Pleasure. Thank you, Kirk.